Today's shiur is quite typical. It's quite typical of where Noah was coming from and how he thought. You know, he grew up in the world of the yeshivas. When you get into the world of the yeshivas, you learn. And what do you learn? And how do you learn? What they do in the yeshivas. But Rav Noach was not someone who just went with the flow. One second, we're learning. So we got to learn up the halachas of Talmud Torah. What are we supposed to be doing? And his conclusion was that what was going on in yeshiva didn't exactly match what the halachas of Talmud Torah taught us. So he took responsibility for his learning. Not in place of what the yeshivas were teaching, but alongside. Enough with the theory. Let's get down to it. The Mishnah in Kedushin says, the mitzvahs haben al av, the mitzvahs that a father has responsibility for his child, for his son, they're incumbent on the father. And then there's the Mishnah, there's a brisa that adds to it. And one of the mitzvahs mentioned there is Talmud Torah. It is the father's obligation to teach his son Torah. And yes, indeed, the Torah's idea of Talmud Torah was not formal education. The ideal is you teach your son. For many benefits, many reasons. One of them is that so much of Torah is attitudes. So much of Torah is transforming the way one thinks, the way one lives, the way one feels. And ideally, an educator is not someone that should be educating the masses, but someone who can really get through to every student on their wavelength. And in the good old days, that was apparent. So ideally, every kid should have been taught by his father. It got to the point where not every father was capable. So the Gemara tells us Rav Yeshua ben Gamla established formal education, and there were rules, a maximum of 25 students per teacher. But the mitzvah is lalamdo Torah, the father's obligation to teach his son. So the Gemara asked me, Noah, where do we know that? What's the source in the Torah for that? Dichsiv v'limatem osam es benechem, you are to teach your children. Says the Gemara now. V'heicha delo agmarei avua, what happens if one's father didn't teach him? Mechayev ihu lemigmar nafshei. He's got to go and teach himself. In other words, if one grows up, he's already bar mitzvah. He's someone who's responsible. He's chayiv the mitzvahs. He's responsible for fulfillment of the mitzvahs. He wasn't taught the Torah. He's got to go and teach himself. The Torah says you are to learn. Now, what are these two psukim? So I have here the two psukim. The first one is Limatem Osam, what we say in Krishma every day. Limatem Osam is B'neichem L'daber Bo, M'shem Techa B'Veisecha, and so on. The other one is the second pasuk. Vayikra Moshe al Kol Yisrael Yom Alam Shema Yisrael Sachukim VaMishpatim Asher Anochi Dover Baznechem Hayom Ulmatem Osam. You are to learn them. Right? The first mitzvah was Vilimatem. You shall teach them. And that's teaching your children. This is a mitzvah to study them yourselves. Ulmatem Osam Ushmartem La'asosam. And then you can observe them to fulfill. So the Rambam, very interestingly enough, begins the halachas of Talmud Torah. What is the first halacha in Talmud Torah? Nashim v'avadim uktanim p'turim in Talmud Torah. Women, slaves, and children are potter. Right? They are freed from the obligation of Talmud Torah. That's a way to start the halacha. But let's go on. Avol konten oviv chayev ulamdo Torah shema. What the Rambam is presenting is that even though a cotton, one who's beneath bar mitzvah, is not chayev b'mitzvahs midoraisa, the Torah does not hold him obligated for any of the mitzvahs. Nevertheless, the ikar mitzvahs Talmud Torah is for him to be taught. Right, so this is different. Even though midoraisa, the whole concept of chinuch, of teaching your children by getting them to do mitzvahs, the chiyuv of a father being mechanech his child and getting him into the habit of doing mitzvahs, that's a derabanan. The source being the pasuk Chanoch lanar api darko, gam ki yaskin lo yosir mimenu, that is not from the Torah. Pasuk in Mishlei. But there is a doraisa mitzvah to teach your son Torah, despite the fact that he's potter from mitzvahs, you've got to teach him Torah. And that is the ideal way of studying Torah. So the Rambam begins with the fact that a cotton really is potter, and nevertheless his father teaches him, because that really is the ideal for the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. That's where it starts. Okay. And then the Rambam continues with the same halachas as Gemara. Mi shalol limdo aviv, chayav lalamein es atzmo k'shiyakir. Interesting, the Rambam says kishi akir. The Rambam says whoever's father did not teach him, that person, as soon as he realizes it, should go teach himself. The Rambam is assuming his father taught him nothing, therefore he doesn't even know that he has an obligation to study. As soon as he finds out that he has an obligation to know Torah, he should go study it himself. Now, the Rambam translates the rest of the pasuk. This you find everywhere. That study precedes action, deed. Because study brings to maisa, to fulfillment. Whereas fulfillment does not bring to study. So this is a whole other issue. But let's in a very concise way, let's understand what the Rambam is saying. The question is Torah study an end to itself, or is it only the way you get the information so you're able to fulfill the commandments? Is there some value in Talmud Torah? Or better yet, if one knows what to do, does he still have to bother studying? Is it just the directions and nothing else? So the Rambam says here, when you do the action, that doesn't teach you Torah. But if you teach Torah, that gets you to do action. Now, one second. When you do the action, it doesn't teach you Torah. But then you don't need to be taught Torah. What's the problem? Why is there an advantage to studying it in order that it'll bring you to know, in order that it'll bring you to do, as opposed to the opposite, which is that if you do, it won't bring you to know? What's the problem if you won't know? You did. You obviously know what to do. It must be that there's something beyond doing that learning gives you. And the Rambam is saying action will not do that for you. Because that is irreplaceable by action. When you study, you will both know and do. When you do, you'll only do, but there's something you won't know. In other words, the study of Torah is not merely the instructions themselves, and then once you know the instructions, that's fine, you've done it. There's something that Torah adds to it. What is it that Torah adds to it? So this is the Rambam in his introduction to his commentary on Mishnah, the Pirush HaMishnayos. The Rambam writes that the objective is wisdom. The objective is to become a wise person. The objective is wisdom. So the Rambam asks the question, if the objective is wisdom, why is the Torah so filled with rules? Just be an academic, says the Rambam. If you know all sorts of things, but you live like an animal, you're not wise. In other words, what's the Rambam saying? The definition of wisdom to the Jew is integrated wisdom. It's becoming a more understanding, sensitive, thinking human being. If anything, according to the Rambam, action is more of a barometer of how wise you are. But ultimately, it's the quality of the human being that we're talking about. And that's really the goal. So, knowing the basic rules of what to do, that would not be enough. Okay, you'll stay out of trouble. You'll fulfill the mitzvahs on a basic level. In order to be elevated, you have to be constantly studying, which is going to change your understanding of even the things you are fulfilling and will give you insight into every other aspect of your life. The goal is what the Torah is going to turn you into. And of course, that will include that you're going to keep the mitzvahs. Whereas if all you do is, I guess, follow what others are doing, grow up or hang out with people that are doing the mitzvahs and you'll know what to do, it is not going to change the quality of the person. So the Rambam's saying, study will get you to do, doing will not get you to study, and you'll be missing out on that whole growth process. So that has to be clear from the onset. When we talk about study of Torah, we do not mean merely knowing the basic rules of what to do. It's growing in it with a deeper understanding of Torah, which is a deeper understanding of yourself, a deeper understanding of life, deeper understanding of right and wrong. You become more sensitive. Even things that are not blatant violations of what the Torah says, but if you'd fully appreciate what the Torah is talking about, you'd understand how there are so many more situations that are included. So it's both the quality of your fulfillment and even more so what you turn into. But you gotta know what to do also. In other words, you have to study Torah, know what to do, and keep studying Torah. So getting back here, what did the Gemara teach us? What did the Rambam teach us? Ideally, it is one's parent that should have taught him everything. If he didn't, then you've got to study yourself. So one thing becomes very apparent from this. If it says, Lo lindo aviv, if your father didn't teach you, then you've got to study it yourself. That means that if your father did teach you, then you already know it. I mean, it's a very powerful statement. What this is saying is that it is possible for one to have been taught the entire Torah by his parent, and then he's done, and then we have other mitzvahs to talk about. But then he knows it all. Which is puzzling, because we know that there are psukim that describe Torah as being endless. Psukim you've got here. David HaMelech says, L'chol tichlo ra'isi kates rechava mitzvah ma'od. Everything there is has an end. Your mitzvahs, Rechava ma'od, there's no gates, there's no end. Just never ending. And then the pasuk in Eov. Aruko me'eretz midah, it's referring to wisdom, Hashem's wisdom. Aruko me'eretz midah, it is longer than the earth. Urchava min yam, and wider than the ocean. So yeah, one's father can teach him the whole Torah, possibly by the time he's bar mitzvah, and then he knows it all already. We must be talking about something that is well-defined and doable. Right? The Rambam is saying, the Gemara is saying, that it's possible that you were taught everything and you don't have a chiyuv to learn any more to find out. We'll see what you do have a chiyuv to do. That means that we're talking about a finite amount of information. It's not rochava miniyah. It's not endless. If you were taught it, it's only if you weren't taught it that you got to teach it to yourself. But if you were taught it, that means you know it already. So what's it? What's it? What is it that one has to know? There another Gemara. They're in Kedushin, the next Talmud. Amar Rav Safra, Mishum Rabbi ben Chananya, Ma'id Yichsid v'shinantam levanecha. What does it say, v'shinantam? What does the word v'shinantam mean? We use the word shinun to review. What does it mean, v'shinantam levanecha? Al terke v'shinantam elo v'shilashtem. 3. Divided into 3. La'olam yishalesh adam shnosav. One is to divide his years into 3. Shlish b'mikra. The Gemara at this point understands that to mean spend the first third of your life studying Torah shebiksav. Shlish b'mishnah. Another third, the second third of your life, you spend studying the Mishnah. Shlish b'Talmud, the third Gemara. So the Gemara asks me, Yodea kamachai. Do you know how long you're going to live? How do you know what a third of your life is? You have no idea how many years you're going to live. How do you divide that into 3? Lo tzricha, says the Gemara, what does it mean? Liyomei. You divide the days. What does that mean? So Rashi says, Yemei HaShavua. Divide the week into 3. And spend a third of the week on Mikra, a third of the week on Mishnah, a third of the week on Talmud. So Tosfos doesn't understand that. Pirush B'Kuntris, Yemei HaShabbos, Kolomer, Shnei Yomim Mikra, Shnei Yomim Mishnah, Shnei Yomim Gemara. Shabbos he didn't talk about. All right, so you spend Sunday and Monday studying Torah Shebiksav, Tuesday and Wednesday Mishnah, Thursday, Friday is Gemara days. Veloni here, Tosfos doesn't like it. Tosfos says no, but still, you don't know how long you're going to live. What does Tosfos mean to answer that? You don't know how long you're going to live, so what does that help? Why not? It means you're not going to make it through the week, Khalili? You don't know how much to learn during the week? Venerally Lefarish, what does Tosfos offer? B'chol yom v'yom atzmo, on every single day. Yishalish, al kein tikkun b'seder. It means every single day you should be learning Mikra, Mishnah, and Talmud. B'chol yom v'yom atzmo yishalish, al kein tikkun b'seder of Amram Gaon in his Siddur. Kamo sha'anu nogim b'chol yom kodem psuki d'zimra loma Mikra, Mishnah, u'gamor. What is it that we say in the morning? We say the parsha of the Talmud is Mikra, Ezel Makoman is Mishnah, and Tanur Rabbi Yishmael at the end. Tanur Rabbi Yishmael is Rabbi Yishmael Omer. That would be called like Gemara. Shlosh Esrei Midas at Torah Nidreshes Beh. That's Talmud. In other words, according to Tosfos, we're not talking about dividing anything. It's make sure that every day of your life, you're including Mikra, Mishnah, and Talmud. Right? It's not that. Tosfos is not saying how many hours a day you spend on it. Yeshalish means that every day you should be investing in Mikra, Mishnah, and Talmud. That's Tosfos' understanding of it. Then he brings Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam Pirishanu Somchen Ahad Amrim Sanhedrin Bovel Belula B'Mikra B'Mishnah L'Gemara. The Gemara's Bovel Balul Mikulam Talmud Bavli. It has everything. It's explaining the Mikra. It's full. It has the Mishnah. It has the Gemara. All you got to do is study Talmud Bavli, and you're really studying everything. This is all according to Tosfos Pshat. That Yashlish doesn't mean literally dividing anything into three, but making sure that you include a study of Mikra, Mishnah, and Talmud every day. So if you're studying Talmud Bavli, you get everything every day. This is the Shita of Rabbeinu Tam. Okay, now we take a look at how the Rambam brings it. The chayiv l'shalish is man l'mida, so you have to divide the time that you study into three. Shlish b'torah shel iksav, shlish b'torah shel alpeh, that's Mishnah's Torah shel alpeh, shlish yovin v'yaskil achris davar mereshi so. You should understand the end of things, in other words, where it's taking you from the beginning. Understand that every halacha in the Mishnah is really a springboard. It's a principle that goes further. Understand achris davar mereshi so, where it should be taking you to. V'yotzi davar mi davar. You should take one thing out of another. V'yidamed davar ledavar. V'yavin b'mida shator nidrashas behem ad sheyeda hechu ikar hamidis. He should go and study the Yud Gimel Midas Shator and Dreshes Bam, so he will understand the real principle of them and understand how we got Torah Shabbat out of Torah Shabbat, because that will be revealing in terms of what it is that we learned out. And how we're going to decide in all cases that are not mentioned in the Mishnah and the Gemara. Everything that you were taught. So first of all, the Rambam is explaining that when it says Mikra, it means Torah Shabbat. When it says Mishnah, that doesn't literally mean the Mishnayos only. Mishnah means the halakha psuka, the halakhas that were handed down that are either recorded in the Mishnah, in Brises. One is Talmud. Talmud is your own expounding on them, your own in-depth understanding of everything, so that you turn everything you learn into a principle and not just a rule, so that you're capable of then applying it to every situation in life ultimately. That's Talmud. Now the Rambam says, how do you go about that practically? Hayabal umnis. The person is a professional. This is the Rambam's idea of how a professional should spend his day. 3 hours a day he works, 9 hours a day he studies. What's with the other 12 hours? I guess eating and sleeping. The Rambam does write you're supposed to sleep 8 hours. The Rambam says, do as I say, not as I do. The Rambam in his autobiography pretty much describes how he didn't sleep. Osan Hatesha Koreh B'Sholosh Mem B'Torah, of this 9 hours of learning. 3 of them, he should be also in Torah Shabiksav, Ubesholosh, another 3 hours of the day. This is like Tosfos. No, it's not like Tosfos. He's literally dividing the day into thirds. The 9 hours of learning time that he has, the first third he should spend on Mikra, B'Sholosh B'Torah Shabal Peh, 3 in Torah Shabal Peh, which is Mishnah, Brisa, Tosefta, everything. Ubesholosh acheres misboning bedato lohavin dover midover. Says the Rambam, Divrei Kabbalah B'chlal Torah Shebiksav. Studying Navi and Ksuvim is included in Mikra. Upirushon, their meaning B'chlal Torah Shabbat Peh. That's included in Torah Shabbat Peh. Then the Rambam talks about the Inyanim Anikroim, Pardes Bichlal HaGemara. Pardes are the different levels of going into things in depth. They are called Gemara. Says the Rambam. What was this Gemara discussing? B'tchilas Talmudo shel Odom. When a person begins study. Aval k'sheyagdil b'chochma. But when he grows in his wisdom. V'lo yitzarech lo lilmo Torah shebiksav lo lasok tomed b'Torah shebal peh. He will no longer need to read mikra or be osek tomed in Torah shebal peh. Yigra be'item mezuman in Torah shebiksav v'divrei hashmua. He should do mikra and mishnah periodically. K'nei shelo yishkach davar medivrei din Torah. V'yafana kol yamav l'gemara bilvad l'chvi rochav sheyesh b'libo v'yishuv dato. So what is the Rambam saying? It's like this. We had our question. It says, lo limdo oviv, you have to study yourself. That means that the mitzvah or that the father had to teach his children. That limdo oviv, what was included in it? What was that finite thing of limdo oviv, where if your father taught it to you, you don't have to do it yourself? What is that? It seems that the Rambam is learning that is mikra, the pasuk, Torah shebiksav, and mishnah, which is the halachis of Torah shebal peh. And at least get into Talmud, which I would understand would mean learn how to learn, as we call it. Learn how to go and abstract the halachas into principles. Learn how to delve into a halacha and get to the depths of the principle. That is the Torah that a father teaches his son. And if he did it, he did it. And if he didn't do it, then the son's got to get that himself. Once he arrives at that, then he should spend most of his time in Talmud. Then he should spend most of his time in Talmud. Don't forget Mikra Mishnah. Review them every so often so that you don't forget them. You got to make sure that it's not just that you studied it, you got to maintain it. So again, the Rambam is giving us a clear definition then. The halacha of Olam Yashlish, this business of thirds, we've got to cover all of Mikra and cover all of what he calls Mishnah, which is all of the halacha psuka, the straight halacha, whether in the form of Mishnah, the form of Bryce, any form it came in. You got to get all of that down. You have to know all of that, all of it. And you got to know how to do what's called Gemara Talmud. You have to learn the process of how to deduce principles from your learning, abstract it and apply to new cases, to all the new situations that arise. Once you've done that, you now know Torah. What do you do the rest of the time? Oh, it's something else. Spend the rest of your life with Talmud. Spend the rest of your life with Talmud. Review the Mikra Mishnah. But the first thing you got to do is get down Mikra Mishnah and the process of Talmud. We saw Tosfos, we saw Rashi, we saw Tosfos, we saw the Rambam. What is the halacha? What is the halacha? What are we required to do in our learning? So the Shulchan Aruch, which is basically the Lashon Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch Yordei Chayev Adam l'shalish limudo shlish b'Torah shebiksav dahainu harbo ve'esrim, the 24 svarim of Torah shebiksav, which is Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. Shlish b'Mishnah dahainu Torah shebal peh upirushi Torah shebiksav b'chlal zeh. Two things, and the Rambam did mention this, both all of the halachis of Mishnah as well as the way Chazal interpret Torah shebiksav. Shlish b'Talmud, Dahainu, sheyovim v'yaskil achros dover mereshiso v'yotzi dover mitok dover v'yadame dover l'dover v'yidon b'mido shator nidreshes behem ad she'edem word for word the Rambam. Ad she'edem hechikar ha-mitzvahs v'yotzo oser v'amuta v'kayotzo b'zeh dvorim shalom v'pi hashmua. Okay, Ketzad the same as the Rambam. Hoya bal umnis, he's a professional. Osik v'malachto gimel shah, it's not just in the days of the Rambam, this is the Shulchan Aruch of Yosef Karo. He's saying you work for 3 hours, v'tes b'Torah, spend 9 hours studying Torah. Korei gimel men b'Torah shebiksav, gimel Torah shebal peh, u'b'gimel yodin dover mitoch dover, exactly what the Shulchan Aruch is paskening the Rambam. אבל כשיגדל בתורה ולא יצטרך ללמוד תורה שבכתב ולא לעשות תלמוד בתורה שבעל פה, יקרא בעיתים מזומנים תורה שבכתב ודברי תורה שבעל פה. Occasionally you should do תורה שבכתב and תורה שבעל פה, כדי שלא ישכח דבר מדיני התורה, ויפנה כל יומיו לתלמוד בלבד. לפי רוחב ליבו, depending on just how broad one's heart is, how well you can understand, how deep it is that you can delve into things. The Yishuv Dato, and your peace of mind. Hagoh, that was the Mechaber, that was the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah brings Tosas. V'yesh omim shebetalmud bavli shu bol b'mikra mishno gemara olam yotzi dei chavaso b'shvil hakol. The Ramah brings Tosas, the Talmud Bavli, you can even Makayim everything. Okay? First, I can't talk about this without mentioning, Rav Noach rejected this Ramah. He rejected this whole Shita of Rabbeinu Tam. He claimed that if you study all of Talmud Bavli, you are not going to know Tanakh. If you don't make a concentrated effort, a real effort to learn Torah Shebiksav. There's a very interesting story. Heard this one back in Lakewood. There was a machlokas of Aaron Kotler, Zechron Levrach, and his Rebbetzin. Someone mentioned a pasuk at the table. She said where it was, and he said, no, it's not there, it's somewhere else. They're arguing over what parak it was, somewhere in Navi. So she took out a Navi and shows him that she was right. So he took out a Gemara and showed that, on the side, there's the Torah or that tells you the source of the pasuk. And it said like Rav Aaron. He knew Torah Shebiksav from the Gemara. And because there was a mistake there, that's what he knew. So Rav Noach used to scream, you'll never get Torah Shebiksav from the Gemara alone. Let's set that aside. The Ramah is not arguing with the basic principle that we're getting here in the Shulchan Aruch. The Ramah is agreeing that you've got to get down Mikra, Mishnah, and Talmud, and only then you spend your whole time only in Talmud. You've got to get down all the information that is contained in Torah Shebiksav, all the information that is contained in the Mishnah, Brisa, and any Memra in Torah Shebal Peh. You have to learn the process of getting principles out of them. Once you're done with that, you can spend your whole time just doing Talmud. The Ramah differs and says you can get all of that by reading through Talmud Bavli. You're going to get the Mikra in the Mishnah in Talmud Bavli as well, like Tosas. So what does that mean? What does that mean for someone in Yeshiva today? What do you got to do? You got to make sure you know Torah Shebiksav. You got to make sure that you know all of the halachas in Torah Shebal Peh. You also have to learn how to learn, as we call it, which doesn't just mean learn how to translate. It means learn how to first of all, get a precise reading of what you're learning. Learn how to make sense of it. Learn how to deduce from the Shakla V'Tanya in the Gemara and the Rishonim what the principles really are. You have to learn how to do that too. But you've got to make sure that you get all of Mikra and Mishnah. Whether it's by studying Torah Shebiksav, all of Torah Shebiksav, and then studying all of Mishnah and everything else that goes with it, and learning how to learn, and then you can spend your whole time doing that, or it could be that you're going to get your Mikra and Mishnah in Talmud Bavli as well. Could be. Learning how to learn and then making use of that know-how is what we call learning be'iyun. Spending your whole day, or even emphasizing, spending the bulk of your day in studying be'iyun, is something you do once you have the yidiyas, once you know, which means you have Mikra and you have Mishnah. Mikra and Mishnah means you're going to know Torah Shebiksav, and you're going to know all the halachas of Torah Shebal Peh. Where are you going to get that? Where are you going to get that? Yeshivas teach Gemara. And Gemara means Gemara be'iyun. So where are you going to get that? So, of course, Rav Noah studied Mikra, and then he was looking for Mishnah. What's going to teach him Mishnah? What's going to teach him all the halachas of Torah Shebal Peh? Because you got to know them. So let's go on a little bit. First of all, the Shulchan Aruch Rav pretty much spells this out. And listen to the words that he asks the underlying question. V'al yomer ha'adam, let a person not say, Eich efshar lilmod kol ha'torah shebal peh kula. How can you possibly know all of Torah Shebal Peh? We're saying there's a halacha that you've got to know all of Torah Shebal Peh. That's what Mishnah is. Harei ha'torah ein lo kates v'tachlis. Kamo shenemer l'chol tichlo risi kates v'chol mitzchos l'miyod. V'nem haruka meretz midah. Torah has no end. How do you know it all? Ki be'emes. Ha'halachos ha'niglos lonu u'lefoneinu. The halachas that are known to us and our children. Yesh lohen kates v'tachlis u'mispor. There is a finite collection of halachas. And the same goes for the midrashim, which are principles for how to live in the Agadata of Shas. Rak. Shatar mitzan atzma in case v'tachlis. Afilu pashti droshesel atzfunim bo. The Torah itself, there's endless depth in everything. There is the word in Torah that is not filled with depth. Rabbi Akiva Yadar Shakol Kots v'Kots Tilim Tilim Shalachis. The crowns of the letters, every crown, every little zion that sticks up from every letter. Rabbi Akiva learned many halachas out of it. The Torah is endlessly deep. And after all of that, Rabbi Akiva still didn't find everything. There is no end to the depth of the real understanding of the underlying principles. And then the back and forth, and really working through, if this is what it means, so how does that fit in that case? And how does it fit in this one? And exactly how is it that they're learning it out of the pasuk? If you get to the principle, you'll end up with endless applications. Once you get the principles, there are endless situations to apply it. So in case without this, the Misha Zochel is it. Achar shegoma tchila, kol haTorah shebal peh ha'masura lanu, V'niklas lein kol, k'mo shomru chachamim, ligmarinish v'hadol lisber. First learn it, and then understand it. Meaning, first learn the basic pshat, and then go into depth. Shu'iyun bo'omek hatanim k'mo she'izbar. Says the Shulchan Aruch Harav, ubizman hazeh, today, shekol haTorah sheba'al peh ksuva lefaneinu. The whole Torah was written. Ein tzarich liskar malamed libno shelamdenu kol haTorah sheba'al peh. Literally, a father does not have to either himself or by hiring someone teach his son all of Mishnah. Why not? Because it's all written. You see, in those days, Torah Sheba'al Peh was literally Baal Peh. If you didn't teach your kid all of Torah Sheba'al Peh, where is he going to get it from? So today, they're in the books. We all have Mishnayos, we have Gemaras. Not only that, we have so many Mefarshei HaTorah. Okay. Ela she'yilamdenu lahavin heitev b'Talmud b'rov ha'makomis, gam b'halachas v'sugyos amukas, im rov ha'poskim rishonim v'achronim. You have to give him a derech halimud to understand how to start, how to learn a sugya with the rishonim and turn that into halacha l'maaseh. V'yamidenu al iyun halacha l'maaseh sheyuchol la'ayin ba'atzmo. Give him the ability to be independent. To be independent in deriving the principles and applying them. Ulahavin ulahoris kol halacha l'maaseh mitol iyun b'Talmud u'poskim rishonim achronim. V'azai, then yuchal haben l'lo b'atzmo kol ha'Talmud v'poskim later kol ha'halacha shel Torah Sheba'al Peh. Shein perish ha'Tariyag mitzvahs, they are the explanation of the Tariyag mitzvahs, the diktir koseim, and their details, b'tameim u'koreim, their reasons and their sources. Today, if you're taught how to learn, then you'll have the svarim there. You'll be able to learn on your own. You can learn everything. Tanakh also, you don't have to teach your kid Mikra, it's there. Teach him how to learn Tanakh. We don't teach our kids all of Tanakh like in those days. We assume that he'll learn it himself once he's independent. In those days, all you had the cloth, the scrolls of the Nevi'im. They were without the vowels. If you didn't teach your kid Tanakh, he wouldn't know how to read the words. And the meaning changes with the different vowels. You have to go over and over the Chumash with your kid, because that's the source of all halachas. How's he going to understand the drashas of Shas if he doesn't know Chumash inside out? What if your son just doesn't have it in him? He's not so intuitive. He's never really going to pick it up. Or he's just not motivated. A kid that's not going to do it on his own, you've got to hire a Rebbe who's going to teach him all of Torah Sheba'al and all of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Because ultimately, that's what everyone's got to know. So it's clear the Shulchan Aruch is saying that the only difference today is that you don't have to teach your kid everything. Once you give him the tools, he can learn them on his own. And if he's not self-motivated, you got to teach him everything. If you know that he's not going to teach himself, then you got to teach him everything. So once again, it's very clear. Every Jew has to know all of Torah Sheba'al. Every Jew has to know all of the halachas in Torah Sheba'al Peh. You have to know all of the halachas a matzorah, tumas tzaras. What is tahor and what is tameh? What is the process? The coin comes, then he comes back. What is the process? What are the consequences? Every parsha in the Torah, whether it's Isser ve'heter, Mutar Asr, whether it's monetary halacha, you got to know all of the rules of Torah Shabbat, the whole of Torah Shabbat Peh. Got to know everything. Not in depth. The basic halachas of everything. Along with all of Torah Shabbat, along with all of Tanakh. You also should be taught the process to turning everything into principles so that you can now learn Be'iyun once you know all of the rules of Torah Shabbat, Torah Shabbat. Okay? So the yeshiva system is built on learning Be'iyun. And they're always telling us you're learning how to learn. And it's so. Our sheer structure in the yeshiva is there so that you go from getting basic vocabulary, basic grammar, understanding the logical sequence of a Gemara, then going further, the sequence of a Tosfos, which is more complex. And then you move up and you get to the point where you learn to be careful in your reading and you learn how to think and derive principles. And notice the difference between the way Rashi must have understood the principle and Tosfos and the Ran and the Rashba. And you're able to derive principles for other situations, for other cases, which is called Talmud. You're being taught all of that. In other words, you are given the tools, the yeshiva teaches you Talmud. What happened to Mikra and Mishnah? Where are you going to get your Mikra and Mishnah from? So Mikra, you got to learn Mikra. You want to be Somach on the Ramah? No, I didn't like it. But you want to be Somach on the Ramah? So you got to learn all of Talmud Bavli and get all the psukim there. And you got to know, not just making a bunch of siyums. Nice to sing, but you got to know it. You got to know it. You got to know all the principles of Torah Shabbat Peh. So where are you going to get that? You can study Shas. Massive. Bikiyas saying you got to cover ground. Bikiyas cannot just be that you're improving your skills with more exposure to Gemara. You got to know. You got to know one Masechta after another and review it so you know it. Is there an alternative? Sure, you can learn Mishnah, but then you got to know all of Mishnah. Got to study Tanakh and all of Mishnah. Because Mishnah is not Bolul, it's not Talmud Bavli. If you study Mishnah, you got to know all Torah Shabbat, you got to know all of Mishnah. So here we get to the Rambam. The Rambam, at the very end of his Akdama, the introduction to the Yad Chazaka, says the Rambam, Bizman Hazet, Tokfu, Atzoris, Yeseres, V'dolka, Hashas, Hakol. There are decrees, and it's so difficult. V'ovda Chochmas Chachamneinu, who's got the time and the peace of mind to be able to hold on to the information and really study with peace of mind like they did in the olden days. Ubinas Nevonenu, the understanding of those among us who understood Nistera, it's hidden. Lefikach, Osama Pirushim Alokas Vatshuva Shechibru HaGaonim V'Roshein Dvarim V'Varim Miskasha B'Yamein. The things that the Gaonim before us wrote, we don't understand them. They made it in your name Karoil Mata Mispah. Most people cannot really get their Mishnah from studying the Gemara and the Rishonim, or the works of the Gaonim and the Rishonim. Vein Sarach Loma Gemara Atzma Bavlis Vayishalmis V'Sifra V'Sifri V'Tasefnis Shem Tzricha Das V'Chova V'Nefesh Chachom Uzman Oruch V'Achar Ken Yodei Amein Aderech Hanachona Hanachocha B'Dvar Masur V'Mutarim Shadin Ator. You got to study Talmud, Bavli, Talmud, Yerushalmi, the Tosefta. It's massive, and you got to know what you're doing. Therefore, Netzarti Chitzni Ani Moshe ben Maimon Asfardi. Anti Alatzur Baruch. So he says he went and strengthened himself and he relied on Hashem. Ubinosi be'el asfarim. He did the work. I did the in-depth study of absolutely everything, the Bavli, the Yerushalmi, the Tosefta, and everything else. V'ra'isi, and I saw fit. L'chaber devarim ha'misbarim b'kol elu ha'chiburim. I found the way to write what is clear. What we call the maskana. What is the last word in every area? With everything. Kulam b'lashon brura, in a clear language. V'derech tzara, short. Ad shetei Torah shebal peh kula stur b'fi hakol b'lo kusha b'lo pirid. So that everyone will be able to have all of Torah shebal peh without kashas and answers. You just be able to read the way the Rambam reads. Halacha, 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 halacha. Not kasha, teretz. Lo zeh omer b'kol, v'zeh b'kol, no machlokesin. Ela dvarim brurim, krovim, nechonim al pi hamishpat she'izbar mikol elu ha'chiburim ha'pirusha and tzomim osmor Rabbeinu ha'kodesh v'rachshav. Everything since Rabbi Yehuda Nasi put together the Mishnah till this very day, the Rambam went and put it all together in a clear, concise, and to the point way. It'll be clear to big and small and big. B'din kol mitzvah o mitzvah, b'din kol advarim shetiknu chacham u'nevi'im. Klal shel davar. K'dei shelo yeh adam tzarech lechibur acher ba'olam. No one should need any other book. B'din midinei Yisrael. El yeh chibur zeh mekabes etor shebal peh kula im atakonis v'aminhogis v'agzeres, including all the rabbanans and the customs. Shenasem os Moshe Rabbeinu v'at chibur haGemara kamo shepirish lanu haGaonim b'chol chibur shechibur at haGemara. Lefika karasi shem chibur zeh Mishneh Torah. The Rambam called it Mishneh Torah. That was what he named it. It was considered a bit presumptuous because Sefer Dvarim is called Mishneh Torah. He named his Sefer the same name as a fifth of Chumash. So it was renamed the Yad Chazaka because there are 14 books of the Rambam. Yad, Yudal is 14. We call it Yad Chazaka. The Rambam called it Mishneh Torah. He held that this was the Mishnah, this was all of Torah Shebal Peh. L'v'yisha'odam kor b'Torah shebiksav tchila, says the Rambam. First study Torah shebiksav. V'achar kori b'zeh, and then study my Mishneh Torah. V'yodei mimenu Torah Shebal Peh kula v'intzarech likol sefer HaKabeim. You don't have to read anything else. So Rav Noach would say, the Rambam is telling us you can fulfill the din of Mishnah by knowing all of Rambam. And he would encourage people to learn all of Rambam. I'm not starting a drive now for everyone to learn Rambam. I'm not telling you what to choose. What I am telling you is, Hilchos Talmud Torah teaches us what we got to know. It's clear from the Gemara, the Rishonim, the Halach and Shulchan Aruch, all the way down to the Shulchan Aruch Harav. It's very, very clear. Learning is not just the experience of learning. Learning means to know. A, we've got to know all of Mikra. We have to know Torah Shebiksav. B, we have to know all the laws of Torah Shebal Peh. C, this I think we do a pretty good job of. C, you have to be taught how to get down to the bottom of the principle and learn to abstract it and apply it to new situations. If you've got A, B, and you've been taught to do C, now you can spend your life learning E. But make sure you get down Torah and you know it. I understand. It's not so commonly done. But you can't call yourself a Talmud Chacham. And for that matter, if you're an observant Jew, you have to fulfill Hilchos Talmud Torah, no? It's one of the 613, isn't it? For some reason, we call someone Orthodox if he keeps Shabbos, Kashrus, and Taras, and Mishpacha. But really, Orthodoxy means you keep all 613. So if you're an Orthodox Jew, you've got to make sure that you're going to know Mikra and Mishnah. You're going to know all the halachas and Torah. And you're going to know how to learn. And at a certain point in time, you're going to start learning everything but you, after you know everything else. So everybody here, you got to know Mikra. You got to learn your Chumash. You got to learn your Navi, even Ksuvim. Nevim Rishonim is a lot easier. Nevim Achronim too. You got to know it. And you got to know Ksuvim. Where are you going to get all of Torah Shabbat Peh from? You can try going through Shas on a basic level, but only if you're going to review it. Not if you're just going to make siyumim and go on to the next one. You got to know it. You can learn Mishnah, Mishnayos with the right Perushim. You'll get it. But you can learn Rambam. You can also learn the 4 Chelkei Shulchan Aruch, and the halachas that are not in Shulchan Aruch, you'll have to find other places to learn, such as so much of the details of Zeraim. There's this one enormous sif and siman in Shulchan Aruch dealing with mitzvahs Atluyas Baritz. There's a lot more to learn. And the halachas of Tumah V'Tara and Kachin. But you got to know all the Torah Shabbat. How come no one's doing it? You see, that was a question that never bothered Reb Noach. The fact that people aren't doing it doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be done. The place you learn what a Jew has to do is Torah, not people. There are a lot of things people don't do. Like, there's no mitzvah of Avos Hashem because most people don't have it. There's no mitzvah of Avos Rein because lots of people are problematic. This is what the Torah is behind. You got to know. I got to tell you something funny. Rav Shach wrote letters on how you're supposed to learn. And he said that everyone's got to have a Bekiya Seder where they're really going through Shas on a basic level. His basic level was Gemara, Rashi, Tosas, Marshal, and Pnei Yeshua. But on a basic level, go through all of Shas. And you got to know it. And nobody listened to him. So Rav Shach once got up and said, it's an interesting thing. People come to me with questions, business questions, how to run their business. Because I'm the expert in business. They come to me with medical shilas, because I'm the expert in medicine. They come to me with help with their shalom bias, because I'm the psychologist. There's only one area they don't listen to me, because apparently they think I don't know anything about it, and that's how to learn. You got to learn how to learn Be'iyun. And that's something you got to get here, because outside of yeshiva, it's almost impossible to get. You got to get your reading skills, your thinking skills, your learning skills. You got to get that down, and that has to be taught in yeshiva with total immersion. You're not going to get that from some shir, that you go to when you're busy all day. You have to use the yeshiva years to make sure you learn how to learn, no question. And our shir structure is doing that. But you also have to know Torah. You have to know. You got to know Mikra. You got to know whatever we're going to call Mishnah. Have your choice. But you got to know all the halachas of Torah Shabbat. This is all included in the chiyuv of Talmud Torah. Rav did it himself. He did some wild stuff. First of all, there were years he's lived on no dose. He barely slept and memorized Mesechtes with his simanim. where he could quickly review a Masechta in minutes. Did the same with Shulchan Aruch. Aside from his understanding in depth of what Torah was meant to tell you. But you gotta know. You gotta know. And encourage people to learn how. The Rambam describes his sefer as easy to use. So we're a few steps, a few notches under that. The Rambam is not such easy reading for us. And if you think it's a shortcut, you may be in for disappointment. You want to learn Rambam? Learn all of Rambam. And know it. You want to learn Mishnah? Learn all of Mishnah. Mishnah lends itself to internalization. The words of Mishnah have a ring to them. Remember, these are the words that all the Klal Yisrael memorized. When Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi wrote down the Mishnah, he didn't really write down the Mishnah. He passed it on. They were memorizing it. It was only after the Gemara was written that it was put to word. What Rav Yehuda Hanassi did is he made a sacred text. There was no official text of Torah Shabbat until that point. But people were memorizing it, and the words of Mishnah, they have a ring to them. They stick. Mishnah is a very good thing. You really think you can get through Shas, B'kiyus, with Chazores and know it? Go for it. Go for it. But you gotta know Torah. It's not enough that you're in Yeshiva and you're learning Iyun. It's great. It is great. And once you know everything, that's what you should be spending most of your time learning. And you gotta make sure you know all of Torah. This is a sugya that was very dear to Rav. And once again, the idea that just because everyone is doing something or not doing something, that doesn't mean they're right. Because there is no source to support not knowing Torah. Torah is not just the experience of learning, it's knowing it. It's knowing it. Nobody holds otherwise. I hope this was productive.